The first look at the story shows a school where everyone presumably uses magic. One of the professors, Negi, appears to be the most popular among the students and even the teachers. He is red-headed and handsome too. The girls, including Asuna, gather around him to have a good look at him and also talk to him. While this is happening, a girl is seen sitting in a classroom all alone. Her name is Evangeline A.K. McDowell. She is a vampire, and she has been alive for over 700 years. She doesn't see immortality as a gift. It is more or less a curse from her own perspective. Fast forward to 80 years later, Evangeline is now known as Yukihime, and she looks older than she was 80 years ago. She is also a college professor in a school. Later on, a group of boys, Touta and his friends, decide to ambush Yuki. They plan to defeat her, but as they jump out from the tree where they are hiding, they try to hit Yuki, but they are stopped by an invincible wall before they can get to her. She makes fun of them for thinking that they have a chance against her. She punches them into the water to defeat them. They get to class, and she punishes them once again. She reminds them that defeating her is the only way that they can get to the capital. Touta decides to ask her what sort of barrier she used in blocking off their attack, but she doesn't give a reply. They suspect that she used magic, but Yuki is not ready to give an answer. In reality, Yuki is Touta Konoe's foster parent, and this is the reason she is hard on him. After school, Touta and his friends talk about Yuki using magic. Apparently magic is no longer a thing. However, there is an app that allows someone to use magic, but it is expensive. Touta's dream is to defeat Yukihime and go to the capital. There is a tower called the orbital elevator that he wishes to climb. After a brief discussion, Touta goes to his parents' tomb for a visit. His parents died in a car crash 2 years ago, and Yuki has been the one taking care of him. As he turns his back on the tombstone, the camera shows the name written on it, which spells out to be Negi Springfield. He is about to leave when the image of a red-headed guy shows up to tell him that he will be waiting for him at the top of the tower. The guy disappears before he can ask further questions. That night, Touta begs Yuki to teach him magic, but she refuses. She tells him to continue training hard with his martial arts. The following morning, Touta and his friends try to take on Yuki once again, but they fail as they usually do. Yuki tells them that they have no chance to defeat her. The five are thinking about what to do when one of their professors, Tachibana, shows up to lend a helping hand. He offers to teach them how to use magic. He hands them a magic app and says they can use this to defeat Yuki. The app doesn't work for Touta, and Tachibana tells him that he has no affinity for magic. He assures him that there is another way. He gives him a bracelet and tells him to give it to Yuki as a present. Later in the night, Touta is still thinking of how he is going to give Yuki the bracelet when she shows up. He awkwardly tells her that the bracelet is hers. He doesn't know how to explain how he got the bracelet, but he tells her that it is a gift. He runs away after saying this to her. Yuki picks up the bracelet and wears it. Yuki is leaving a mall when Touta's friends appear behind her with the use of teleportation magic. They bind her and are happy that they are about to finally defeat her. She doesn't take everything that they are doing with all seriousness and even laughs at them. Suddenly, Professor Tachibana shows up and reveals his true colors. He knocks the students out and conjures several spears to impale Yukihime. Yuki tries to use her magic, but the bracelet blocks her from doing that. He explains that he is a bounty hunter, and he is there to terminate Yukihime. Yuki finds it hard to move because of the binds holding her down. Tachibana brings out his sword and goes after Yuki, but Touta shows up just in time to block the attack. He is still telling Tachibana to leave his friends alone when Tachibana charges toward him with super speed and cuts off his left arm. Tachi is about to finish Touta off, but Yuki blocks the attack even though she is bound. It appears that her will to protect Touta is the reason she is able to move even though she is bound. This doesn't stop Tachibana from cutting her into pieces. Touta screams out in pain, but Tachibana pushes his sword into him to end him. He then makes his way to where the rest of his friends are so he can finish them off. Just then, Yuki's head speaks out to Touta, and this surprises him. She lets him know that he is now special, and this is the reason he is not dead yet. She turned him into an immortal monster when she saved him 2 years ago. She tells him that he has a choice to activate what is already inside of him or not. If he wants to activate the power, he has to drink her body fluid. Touta makes his choice and licks the red liquid on the floor. Touta gets the power to move again, and he tells Tachibana to leave his friends alone. They charge toward each other, but Tachi knocks him down. Tachi gets a scare when Touta's severed hand reattaches to his body. He powers himself up and delivers a fatal blow to Tachi's body to completely knock him out. After he has done this, he falls to the ground. Before passing out, he sees a young girl walk over to him. When he wakes up, he finds out that he is alive, and Yukihime is alive as well. Yuki reveals her true identity to him. She explains that his parents didn't die in a car crash, but she fulfilled his parents' dying wish to save him. She selfishly gave Touta the immortality curse. Touta realizes that he can't die anymore and doesn't see it as a curse. He is happy that he gets to spend the rest of his eternal days with Yuki. Later on, Yuki and Touta leave the village because it is no longer safe for Yuki. Touta is forced to say goodbye to his friends, and he hopes that they will meet at the tower one day. When Yuki asks him why he is going to the tower, Touta lies and says he just wishes to. As they continue walking, Touta realizes that most of the land is uninhabited. This has been happening all over the world, and the capital is now even known as New Tokyo. Touta asks why they are not using a means of transportation to move, and Yuki explains that they might come across bounty hunters, and this will leave a bloodshed. This is what Yuki is trying to avoid, and the same reason that they are trekking. Touta is happy that he is headed to the capital, and this is because he will get the chance to make more friends. They make a pit stop and Touta jumps into the water to have a bath. He allows the current to continue taking him, but he stops when he runs into an obstacle. He looks up to find out that what he ran into is a human. The lady gets angry and kicks Touta out of the water. However, the person claims that she is not a woman. Touta apologizes for assuming that she is a woman. The guy introduces himself as Tokisaka Kuramaru and says he is impressed with Touta because this is the first time someone of his age will be able to dodge his attack. Kuramaru explains that she came from the tower and headed to the capital. Touta is impressed when he hears this because he knows that Kuramaru's family is rich enough for them to be living at the top of the tower. Kuramaru then says he has been kicked out of his family. He is forbidden to return until he finds the woman known as Evangeline and defeats her. While he is saying this, Kuramaru realizes that Touta has no reflection in the mirror. Just then, Yukihime shows up and Kuramaru immediately recognizes her as the woman he is after. He charges toward Yuki with his sword, but she easily blocks the attack. She recognizes Kuramaru as one of her longtime enemies, the Shinmei Ryu. Touta demands to know what is happening, and Kuramaru explains that he is from a clan, the Fushigari, that hunts immortals. He lets Touta know that he is aware that he is a vampire too. Touta is sad when he hears this because he is already hoping that he and Kuramaru will become friends. Kuramaru powers himself up and tries to attack Yuki again, but Yuki simply pushes her hand into his chest to take him out of commission. Touta is shocked to see this and scolds Yuki for terminating Kuramaru. Yuki tells him to calm down and take a closer look. Touta looks down to find out that the hole in Kuramaru's chest is already healing. It turns out that Kuramaru is also an immortal. Kuramaru wakes back up and says he needs to defeat Evangeline before returning home. This is the condition his brother gave him before leaving. Yuki then makes him a deal. She will be open to fighting Kuramaru if he can fight and defeat Touta. Kuramaru accepts the deal and brings out a sword that Touta can also use. Touta sets a condition for the fight. Whoever loses the fight gets to fulfill one wish that the winner wants. Kuramaru accepts the deal, and the fight begins. As the fight proceeds, the two can clearly see that they are both strong. Kuramaru cuts off Touta's head, believing that he has ended the fight only for Touta to grab his head and reattach it to his body. He uses this as a surprise attack and knocks Kuramaru to the floor. He defeats Kuramaru by this, but gets scared that he might not wake up from the attack. Kuramaru gets back on his feet and accepts defeat. Touta then makes his wish. He wants Kuramaru to be his friend. Kuramaru has no choice but to accept the deal. They even signed a contract to seal the deal. Later on, the two decide to have a bath. Kuramaru reveals that he was chased out of his clan because he is immortal. After this, Touta suggests that they climb up the cliff to check out the women's bath. He knows that Yukihime will be there as he speaks. He has seen her body several times, and she has a hot body, he says. Kuramaru doesn't want to do this because Yuki is known as one of the deadliest vampires in history. Touta knows this and doesn't care. He climbs up the cliff and finds himself in the women's bath only to see a young girl sitting alone. He wonders who the person is, and she opens her mouth to tell him that she is Yuki. This is the same girl he saw when he passed out after fighting Tachibana the other day. Yukihime then changes into her older self, whom Touta knows. She has been using a magic aging medicine to make herself bigger. The small stature that Touta saw is her real body. Tora immediately loses interest in seeing the rocking body that he came to see. What he now sees when looking at Yukihime is a young girl. Yuki gets angry and attacks Touta with magic. She uses magic ice spears to hit, and he falls off the cliff. Kuramaru sees Touta falling to the ground, and he meets him halfway to save him. He later realizes that there is no point in saving him because he is actually immortal. After this, the trio decides to continue their journey to the capital. Touta then suggests that they gather other immortals so that they can have a group of immortals. By this, they can do more good than harm. Yukihime laughs hard when she hears that Touta plans to use his powers for good. She says someone she knew once said something similar to that a long time ago. She had not finished what she was saying when a bunch of cars arrived on the scene. The people in the car come out and start to pay homage to Yukihime. One of the guys who just arrived, Karen, threatens to end Touta for getting close to Yukihime, but Yuki tells her not to bother herself because Touta is also immortal. Yuki then explains to Touta that she already made an organization of immortals, and they are known as UQ Holder. They get aboard a ship that will take them to the capital. On the ship, Karen wonders how Yukihime was able to survive being with Touta for more than 2 years. This is because Karen sees him as an imbecile. Yukihime then tells her that it will be best for her to get along with Touta because their powers are on par with each other. Karen crushes the cup in her hand because she refuses to believe this. They soon get to the Palace of the Immortals, which is 10 kilometers away from the shore of New Tokyo. It is a secret headquarters, but they also run hot springs. All the UQ holders are happy to see their leader, Yukihime, back among them. UQ holders number 6, Makabe, and the number 10, Amaya, show up to explain some things to Touta and Kuromaru. They tell the two that all the immortals are not necessarily vampires. Some of them are beast people, and some have even created immortality from virtual realities. Makabe lets it out that there are monsters living under the palace. To test their capabilities, Makabe suggests that they have a duel. This will be the determinant for them to join the UQ holder. Karen shows up and says she would like to fight Touta, while Kuromaru will fight Makabe. Touta wastes no time in attacking Karen, but she easily knocks him to the ground with her hammer. It is Kuromaru's turn to fight Makabe. The fight between the two appears to be easy for Makabe. He is not relying on magic, but using experience and intuition to battle it out with Kuromaru, who gets exhausted before long. After the battle, Kuromaru and Touta sit down to talk about their battle experience. While they are in the middle of this, a girl carrying loads passes by and trips on their legs, causing her to fall down. Touta and Kuromaru waste no time in helping her. It turns out that she was carrying trash. They help her out and throw everything into the trash bin. The two tell the girl that they are there to join the UQ holders. The trio introduces themselves to each other, and the girl says her name is Shinobu Yuki. Meanwhile, Yukihime is in her office, thinking of how Touta will pass the hurdle in front of him. Touta is Negi's grandson, and he was once faced with this kind of test. She wonders how Touta will pass the test. Kuromaru and Touta decide to help out Shinobu. They carry some boxes that are meant to be in the storeroom. While they are trying to search for the storeroom, they see a door that leads into a basement. Touta doubts if they are heading to the storeroom, but Kuromaru simply says they will go back to the surface if the basement is not the storeroom. They get to the basement to find out that it is not a basement. They are trying to find out where they are when a guy shows up. He introduces himself as UQ holder number 2, Jinbei Shishido. The two immediately realize that Jinbei must be very powerful for him to be the number 2. Jinbei then showed the boys a sword stuck into a brick. He suggests that Touta try to pull out the sword. He says the sword is Tota's if he can pull it out. The sword is being held together by magic forged by the great mage Albereo Ima. Countless strongmen have tried to pull out the sword but have failed. Touta walks toward the sword and hears a voice that tells him how to remove the sword. He touches a dial beside the sword, and this disengages the sword from where it is. This shocks the man, and he asks Touta how he did it. Touta tells Jinbei that the sword spoke to him. It turns out that the sword's name is Kurobo, and it has not been wielded in a long time. It is said that the sword chooses his own wielder. After pulling it out, Jinbei says there is still a lot for him to learn. The sword has several functions that Touta needs to learn. The sword has gravity options that can be changed at will. It can become really heavy and it can become very light too. Touta will need to learn the functions of the sword very well. He will stay in the basement to train hard because things will fall apart if he tries training outside. As days go by, Touta and Kuromaru continue to train. After some days, Kuromaru and Touta decide to challenge their nemesis. Kuromaru challenges Makabe, while Touta challenges Karen. Makabe admits that Kuromaru's accuracy has increased since the last time that they fought each other. However, Makabe doesn't see Kuromaru as someone who actually has a chance against him. As the fight progresses, Kuromaru starts to think about what Touta would do if he was in his position. He gets an idea, and at the same time, Makabe cuts off his hand. Makabe is about to relax that he has won the fight when he realizes that a sword has pierced him from behind. He figures out that Kuromaru can still actually move any part of his body even if it is severed from the rest. With this simple trick, Kuromaru wins the match. Makabe falls to the ground and a virtual icon displays on the screen to show that he has lost a life. Makabe stands up and says it has been a long time since he lost one of his lives. He has over 200 lives to spare. Kuromaru has defeated Makabe and earned the right to join the UQ holder. The fight between Touta and Karen still continues, and it appears to be an intense one. Shinobu stands in the distance, cheering Touta up. Unknown to her, a monster is already approaching her. Touta gives it his all and gets the better of Karin. He is about to land the deciding blow when he hears Shinobu's scream from a distance. He leaves Karin and runs toward Shinobu's location. Touta finds Shinobu surrounded by monsters. He is about to engage them when Karin shows up to help. She offers to lead the monsters away so that Touta will have a better chance at rescuing Shinobu. While leading the monsters away, one of them turns back and Touta jumps into the rescue. He defeats the monster and takes Shinobu to safety. After the monsters are safe, Touta switches the dial on his sword to times 50,000 and jumps on the group of monsters to terminate all of them at once. The effect of the damage leaves a crater in the ground. After everything has settled, Karin tells Yukihime that Touta has defeated him, and he can now be added to the family. However, Yukihime still wonders how the monsters escaped from under the facility. Yukihime then gives Touta and Kuromaru the mission to defeat all of the monsters in the basement. She knows that Kinbei has something to do with everything happening and forces him to join them. Soon afterward, Kuromaru and Touta are called to Yukihime's office to have a talk with her. She tells them that she has a mission for them. The mission is originally for Karin, but the two will be escorting her to complete the mission. This will be their first mission as beginners. Touta is already happy that they will get to the mission site with the help of a vehicle, only to find out that they are trekking and running to the scene. On their way to the scene, Karin reveals the details of the mission. She tells Kuromaru and Touta that there is a group of people who plan to eradicate the poor. The UQ holders are there to stop this. They soon arrive at a church where the invaders are carrying out their next mission. Touta jumps in their middle and knocks all of them out without even realizing it yet. After this, the trio decides to stay with the poor people for some more days. Touta makes food for them and also carries out other tasks. Everyone loves Touta's food. He starts to wonder if he is a savior or a chef. Even the bad guys who were knocked out gathered around to have a taste of Touta's food and talk out their differences later. Later on, Karin tells Touta about the flash step training and how it will be useful later. Touta wastes no time in training for the skill, so he can be faster than he actually is. While he is practicing his flash step skill, a guy shows up and hits Touta into the trash behind him. He talks about how disappointed he is about the way Touta is going about the flash step training. He says everything Touta is doing is actually wrong. He has only been leaving dust everywhere without getting anything tangible done. The guy gives Touta an example of how he is supposed to move, but it turns out that the guy already has a lot of training when it comes to flash step. When the guy is executing the flash step skill, he leaves no dust. This is very impressive, and he can even use this to draw at super speed. He suggests that Touta uses the skill during an arm wrestling match, but Touta sees it as cheating. After several examples of how the skill can be used, the guy finally introduces himself to Touta. The guy's name is Keito, and he is a martial artist. He is ready to teach Touta the two skills he needs to make his flash step ability perfect. He assures Touta that the first technique is the hardest, and once he can master it, he is good to go. Kaito is open to making Touta his student once he is able to master the first skill. As days go by, Kaito continues to train Touta on the things he is supposed to do if he plans to master the technique. Touta is very particular about the skill, and he has given it his all. Everyone notices this, but they don't know what he is planning to do. In the next scene, Kaito meets with another weird guy, Nagumo. Kaito tells him about Touta, but Nagumo warns Kaito about getting attached to Touta. Kaito then says he is only messing with the bunch. He changes into his real self, which is a wolf form. It turns out that Kaito and his comrades are immortal hunters, and they plan to terminate Touta and his comrades. A little while later, the guards who are supposed to be protecting the area are attacked by a bunch of masked people. At the same time, Karin is attacked in the bathroom by a strange and strong guy. The guy appears to be one of the immortal hunters, and he is able to create fear in Karin. She suggests that the guy leave if he still values his life. Just then, the guy brings out a stick and pushes it into Karin's mouth, causing her pain. With this, the guy is able to figure out that Karin might be immortal, but she still feels pain. The guy then introduces himself as Chow, a member of the private security firm known as Powerful Hand. The task that has been given to him is to delay Karin. On the other hand, Touta soon finds out that the slums are on fire. He is about to investigate the source of the fire when he is attacked by the same bunch of masked people who took out the guards. Kuromaru shows up to assist Touta and also tells him everything that is happening. He says the masked people are shadow dolls that can be controlled by someone. Out of nowhere, a wolf shows up, and Nagumo also accompanies him. Touta then tells the little boy, Ruki, who is with him, to leave and take care of the chaos that is ravaging the town. After this, the werewolf charges toward Touta and hits him with a crucifixion spell that takes him out of commission. Kuromaru is left to face off with the enemies. Inside the bathroom, Chao is still busy dealing with Karin. He is able to pin her to the wall and uses an electric knife to keep her down, while the masked dolls show up. Kuramaru is holding himself up against the werewolf. The wolf is strong, but Kuramaru is ready to put everything he has into the basket to defeat the wolf. Suddenly, the wolf appears beside her using super speed. He hits him to the ground and delivers several heavy blows to her. Kuramaru falls beside Touta and can clearly see that he is unable to move because of the seal that has been carved into him by the wolf. He is a vampire, and this makes the seal work even more than it should. The wolf pins Kuramaru down with some iron pillars and adds ice to it. He calls him the little lady while doing this. This is to give us some hint that Kuramaru might be a girl, but pretending to be a guy. Suddenly, Ruki comes back and he stands between the wolf and the wounded two. Kuramaru screams at him to leave when he sees this. Back in the bathroom, Chao talks about how he has been monitoring Karin. He knows everything about her and her origins. He has grown obsessed with her, and he calls it love. The battle outside the house continues, and the wolf grabs onto Ruki. He doesn't mind terminating Ruki because it is his job. They are mercenaries who have been hired by those living at the top of the tower to take out the poor people, supposedly living on their lands. Everything the wolf is doing, he counts it as a job. The wolf is about to end Ruki's life when Kuramaru removes the pillars, holding her down, and flies toward Ruki's direction to save him. However, something interesting happens in the process. He finds out that someone else blocked the wolf's attack as he rescues Ruki. It turns out that the person is Touta. Everyone present in the scene is shocked and wonders how he is able to move even with the seal that was imprinted on him by the wolf. His arms are also emanating some sort of dark aura. Now in the bathroom, Chao continues tormenting Karin until she kicks him in the balls to cause him pain. He falls to the ground and Karin starts to shine bright to indicate that she is powered by the holy power. This surprises Chao because Karin is a vampire and shouldn't be able to use the power, but Karin lets him know that she is blessed by the divine being himself. She is not cursed, but blessed contrary to popular belief. She knocks Chao to the wall and beats him up till he can no longer move. Nagumo asks Touta if he has any idea what the power on his hands is, but he says no. The wolf charges toward Touta, but Touta easily delivers a punch before he can even react to it. The world is happy to be going against someone as strong as Touta. Touta tells Kuramaru to get himself and Ruki out of there while he deals with Nagumo and the wolf. Just then, Karin shows up and offers to deal with Nagumo, while Touta battles it out with the wolf. Touta can easily figure out that the wolf is Kaido. This is because of his ability to use the flash step. When he realizes that he has been found out, the wolf changes back to its normal self, Kaido. Kaido is prepared to fight it out with Touta. He is truly hyper to be going against Touta. The two charge toward each other, but it appears that Touta has mastered the flash step more than Kaido even expected. It comes to a stage and Kaido decides to use the hidden technique he hasn't shown Touta. He makes a stance and runs toward Touta with a skill that he didn't teach to him. Touta has no reaction time to this, and the next thing he sees is Kaido's hand in his chest. Kaido calls the technique the Bright Piercing Judgment. This is Kaido's trump card, which has the capacity to get hold of an immortal's heart and shatter it into pieces. This is enough to kill any immortal and stop their heart from regenerating. Suddenly, some sort of dark aura emerges from Tota's body, and this is enough to get his heart started again. He pushes Kaito off, and he loses one hand in the process of this. Nagumo recognizes the power, and he calls it the Magia Arabia. The Magia Arabia is a dark magic that holds the ultimate secret of immortality. The wielder will be bestowed with extraordinary power, but there is the risk that their soul will be consumed. Only 2 people have been on record to use this power, and one of them is Evangeline. The second is a man considered the greatest mage in the world. Nagumo once met them in the year 2065, and this was when he knew the true extent of this power. Touta grabs Kaido and throws him into the distance. His negative emotions are making him more powerful. Nagumo wants to step in, but Karin stops him. She says Touta is their responsibility, and they are the only ones who can stop him if he decides to go rogue. Touta is about to terminate Kaito, but he manages to control himself and get rid of the Magia Arabia before it completely takes over him. Kaito is surprised to see this, and he tells Touta to terminate him, but he refuses. Touta is already weak because of this, and they decide to settle their fight by engaging in an arm wrestling challenge. Kaito plans to use the second technique he has hidden. He uses the flash step to try and hit Tota's hand, but Touta is able to hold him back using his own sheer will. He lets out everything in his mind before smashing Kaido to the ground, thereby making him the winner of the challenge. Karin can clearly see that he has been underestimating Touta. Nagumo offers to take Kaido away because they have completed their mission already. The town is on fire, and there is no possible way to stop it. Just then, Yukihime shows up and casts an ice spell that takes out the fire. It turns out that Nagumo and Yukihime know each other. Touta asks how they come to know each other, but she promises to tell him later. Nagumo brings out his sword and cuts open a portal for him and Kaido to escape. When Touta asks Yukihime how he got to have the Arabiya in him, Yukihime simply says he has her blood in him, and this is the reason he is able to wield the power. Meanwhile, there is someone watching everything happening to Touta from a giant monitor screen. Up next, Kuromaru is holding Kurobo in his hands, and he asks him if he knows anything about the Magia Arabiya, because he has a feeling that something bad might happen to Touta. Kurobo simply lets it out that he is aware that Kuromaru is in love with Touta. Kuromaru denies this, and throws Kurobo away before running away. On the other hand, Shinobu has built a machine that she plans to use in competing in the solar race. Touta is clearly impressed with her, and he lets this known. Kuromaru is in the distance, and it appears that he is watching them with jealousy in her. Later on, Karen goes to Kuromaru's room to tell her what her mission is. She opens the door when he is busy dressing up, only to find out that he is actually a girl pretending to be a boy. Kuromaru begs her not to tell Touta about this and adds that she can explain how things came to be. Kuromaru is a demi-human, a member of what is called the Yata no Karasu. They remain genderless until they reach adulthood. They get to choose the gender that they want when they turn 16 years of age. Upon hearing this, Karen attacks Kuromaru and suggests that she chooses a female when the time comes. She wants her to spend the rest of her life with Touta so that he will not have to disturb Yukihime. Karen adds that Kuromaru will be cute if she turns out to be a female, coupled with the fact that she is in love with Touta, even though she doesn't want to accept it. Just then, a guy, Iku, who has been sitting in the distance and hearing everything, makes himself seen. He says he heard everything that was said, but he is going to keep his mouth shut, and he also has plans to help Kuromaru. Iku suggests that Kuromaru go on a date with Touta. He is going to pretend that he is a girl, and also change her hair color to blonde, which appears to be Tota's preference. Touta is still talking about Kuromaru when she appears in disguise. She is able to easily fool Touta to get him to follow her into town, under the guise she is Kuromaru's sister, and she needs a tour of the town. Karen and Iku are happy that the plan worked, but Iku soon realizes that he is in trouble because he will be the one to complete the work that Kuromaru is supposed to do. Kuromaru, who introduces herself as Kuryu to Touta, accompanies Touta to get permission from Shinobu to borrow the vehicle she just made so that it can take them into town. They get on the vehicle and use this to find their way into town via water. Kuromaru is happy to be having some alone time with Touta. She can easily see how caring he is with everything that he is doing. Kuromaru says she would like to go to the tower, and Touta agrees to take her there. Meanwhile, there is a guy stalking the two, and he appears to be dangerous. On the other hand, the white-haired guy who was monitoring Tota's every move has learned that he left the UQ holder's base for the capital. He gets ready to also leave for the capital. Touta gets to the tower, and he starts to ramble on about how amazing the tower's height is. He has always wanted to do this, and this presented the best opportunity to him. He still has to get to the top of the tower because of the guy who has always been disturbing him about it. During their conversion, Touta talks about how he sees Kuromaru as his best friend, whom he believes that they are stuck together for life. This gives Kuromaru the idea that Touta is actually okay with him being a guy. Touta then adds that Kuryu is cute, and this puts Kuromaru in a dilemma. He wonders if it will be best for him to become a girl, so that Touta can see him as a cute person. Kuromaru is about to confess his love for Touta when the stalker guy shows up and attacks them. The guy turns out to be Chao, and he is accompanied by a shadow mage, Asura. Touta sinks to the shadow realm while Kuromaru is knocked to the ground because of her inability to gather her chi. She is not used to being a girl, and this is the reason she is very weak at that moment. Kuromaru realizes that they are planning to kidnap Touta, and she needs to do something about it. She charges toward the two, and they find out that she is immortal too. Asura knocks her out of the window. Kuromaru knows that she is no match for Asura with the type of body that she is currently putting on. Kuromaru is defeated, and Chao sinks her to the Shadow Realm too. He wants to take her with them to their boss. Kuromaru takes off his disguise and assumes his full strength. He is able to rescue the unconscious Touta from the enemies. Chao gets knocked out of the building while Asura retreats because the cops have arrived. Touta wakes up when everything is calm and starts asking after Kuryu. Kuromaru lies that he took care of everyone and Kuryu is also safe. Touta then thanks Kuromaru for saving him. Kuromaru's decision to pick which gender she wants continues to linger on. Meanwhile, one of the UQ holders, Kiri Sakuram, is seen performing a ritual over and over again. When Iku asks her what the special occasion is, she simply says, "It is about to start." Touta and Kuromaru soon return to the headquarters, and they are received by Iku, Karen, and Kiri. Touta recognizes Kiri as the girl who was playing with sand earlier that day. Iku then tells him that Kiri might look just like a girl, but there is more to her. Kiri takes Touta to a private place and starts to scold him for failing to protect her. She starts giving out ridiculous instructions to him, and when he gets tired of it, Touta rebels and demands that he knows what Kiri is punishing him for. Kiri says Touta has failed to protect her. She is about to continue explaining when she is attacked by the Shadow Mage. Touta wants to go after the mage, but Kiri stops him and asks him to hold her hands. He does, and they suddenly go back in time. They return to under the tree where Kiri was playing with sand. Kiri explains to him that she just turned back time. Iku and Karen show up, asking for Kuryu. Touta is about to tell them that Kiri turned back time when she hit him in the leg to keep him shut. She then demands that Iku and Karen take them back to the capital because Kuryu will be there. On the boat, Kiri explains to Touta that her power is not magic. It is a special power that only she can use. The sands are some special sand from the mountains which allows her to go back to her last save. If she is holding someone's hand when she dies, it allows her to take the person's soul with her. She is the UQ holder number 9, Kiri Sakurami. Even Karen doesn't know the true nature of her powers. Kiri then explains that they have been through several playthroughs and Touta has failed to protect her in each one. She starts to narrate how the first playthrough happened. She tells Touta everything that he said during that span of time. Touta was able to protect her in the timeline and get rid of Chao. She then explains that there is someone called Fate Avarunkus who is considered the greatest mage of all time, and he plans to kidnap Touta. Kiri explains that she and Kuromaru were separated from Touta and Iku for just a little while when an explosion happened. Kuromaru ran toward the explosion without settling down to hear what Kiri had to say. They get to the site to find out that Fate Avarunkus is taking out Touta and the entire squad. He tells Kiri that he is the legal owner of Touta and he has come for him. Fate is the guy with the white hair. He is about to petrify Kiri, but she quickly terminates herself so she can reset everything again. Touta is shocked when he hears all of this. He asks Kiri who Fate is, and she explains that Fate is an earth magic user who was once considered a hero, but he has turned against humanity for unknown reasons. Kiri doesn't know why Fate said he is Tota's legal owner, but she is sure that everything is over once Fate is able to lay his hands on Touta. They are in the middle of this conversation when Iku and Karen show up. Karen has heard everything and she now knows what Kiri's true powers are. Kiri has been hiding her powers because it might lead to people knowing what her weaknesses are. Touta then tells her not to worry because Iku and the others will never try to harm her. Karen and the others also join Touta in giving her their word that she is absolutely safe with them. Kiri then explains to the group that they need a plan to engage Fate. They know where and when he will attack, and what is left for them is to find a way to turn the tables against him. Yukihime has approved of this mission herself, and all they need to do is figure out the plan A and B. They also need to capture Fate. They make their way to the location where Fate will show up, and they start to make plans. Touta will be the one to lure Fate in while Karen and Iku are the feints for the team. Kuromaru and Kiri will be on standby, and Kuromaru needs to do his best to get Kiri behind Fate when he shows up. Once she is able to touch Fate, all of their troubles are over. She will take Fate to the basement under the facility, and it should take him a while before he figures out his way out of the basement. The rest of the squad begs Kiri to take her with them when the time comes, and she agrees. All they need to do is get to Kiri before she takes Fate to the basement. Once they miss the time frame, Kiri lets them know that she will not be waiting. With everything said, the plan gets underway. Touta is to communicate with them via a smartphone. He asks Kiri why Yukihime is not there to help them when she is clearly strong and will go a long way. Kiri explains that the Fate will know that Yukihime is around once he gets to the vicinity, and that will ruin their plans. While Touta is talking to the team, someone in a hoodie walks past him and hits him on the hands. Touta is curious to know more about Fate, and a video recording of Yukihime explaining who Fate is pops up on his phone. Yukihime explains that Fate Avarunkus helped resolve an incident on Mars some 80 years ago, and this saved the world. Negi Springfield, who was Tota's grandfather, was there with him. The two of them were friends, but after Negi died 20 years ago, Fate's behavior changed, and he became a threat to humanity. She says Fate is after Touta because of his past relationship with Negi. Yukihime tells Touta not to listen to whatever Fate tells him, and the video ends. Moments later, Fate shows up, but the team is unable to fire the taser at him because Tota's childhood friends from the countryside are walking beside Fate. They have no choice but to wait it out and see what will happen. Touta stands there until his friends notice him and run over to him. Iku realizes that Fate is some meters away from Tota's friends, and he can now attack him with the laser. He is about to activate the laser when someone attacks him. Fate shows up behind Tota's friend, and he holds them by the shoulder. Touta is already sweating and expecting something bad to happen when Fate opens his mouth to calmly introduce himself as a longtime friend of Tota's grandfather. His friends hear this and want to introduce themselves, but Fate says he knows who they are. He says their names are Nikumaru Tanaka and Toru Mihashi. He already has the two as his hostages, and he suggests that Touta come with him if he doesn't want him to cut down everyone in the area, including his friends. He has the power to do this, so Touta has no chance of challenging him. Now that he has Touta under his thumbs, he suggests that he tell his friends to come out of their hiding places and surrender their weapons. Touta then argues with him and says he is never coming with Fate. Kurobo flies to Tota's hands, and Touta screams out to everyone to tell them that there is a terrorist on the loose. This serves as a distraction for Karen to get behind Fate and attack him, but he easily blocks the attack. Touta also charges toward him, but he blocks their attacks simultaneously and wears a smile. The smile infuriates Touta, and he wants to attack Fate the most. Touta increased the weight of his sword to times 500,000, and he is able to use this to break through Fate's barrier. Fate's comrade sees this and lets her eye off Iku, and this allows Iku to break free and fire the laser on Fate. Fate manages to put up another barrier to stop the laser attack, but Kirei shows up and jumps toward Fate. She hugs him and waits for some seconds for her comrades to rally up to join her, but this turns out to be their mistake. Fate uses this opportunity to petrify Kirei, who is their trump card. He makes fun of them and says they are out of options. Iku continues to fire the laser at Fate to give his comrades the chance to run away, but Touta wants to stay and fight Fate. He believes that Fate still has some humanity left in him. Just then, another of Fate's comrades, Shaba, shows up to engage Karin. Asura is also there to battle it out with Kuramaru. The lady who will be fighting Iku is known as Iwai. Karin knows that the right option is for them to retreat, but the enemies will not let them leave just like that. Touta charges toward Fate with the flash step skill, but he easily deflects it and knocks Touta to the wall. He appears behind him and releases a bunch of blades on him, but Touta manages to dodge every single one of them, but loses his shirt in the process of this. Touta easily figures out that Fate is not just the world's strongest magician, but also a martial artist. This makes him a magical martial artist and a dangerous one at that. He charges toward Fate and changes the sword weight at intervals to mess with Fate as the battle progresses. Touta receives a call from Karen telling him that there are some numbers floating on Kiri's arm. He realizes that Kirei is up to something, and she doesn't give up on them. They need to delay Fate and his comrades till the numbers count down to 0. Touta is able to hold out till the countdown reaches 0, and Fate realizes too late that Kirei has been working on a petrification cure. Kirei grabs Fate and the rest of them join in. She successfully takes everyone back, and this is the 10th playthrough. Fate finds himself in the basement, surrounded by Touta and his friends. Yukihime is also there, and she makes fun of him for falling into the youngster's trap. Fate is ready to battle it out with Yukihime, and he has the highest chance of winning. However, he will be faced with 4 other immortals if this happens. He doesn't want to stress himself, and he offers them an option. If they let him go, he will answer any questions they ask him truthfully. He knows everything that there is to know, so each person has the right to ask one question. Touta is about to ask his question, but his friends stop him. They tell him to wait till they have asked him their own questions, so that Touta would know the most important one to ask by then. Iku asks Fate what he wants with Touta, and he reveals that he is after Touta to use his power to revive Negi. Touta thought his grandfather was dead, but it turns out that it was a lie. Karen then asks her question too. She asks Fate who Negi loved more between him and Yukihime. Fate was not able to give a direct answer to this, because Yukihime would kill him if he did. Kuramaru then asks Fate her own question too. He asks Fate if Touta has to accompany him immediately, but he says no. He reveals that Negi will not die for the next 20 years or so. The whole world will also die with him when this happens, but the fact remains that Touta doesn't need to follow Fate immediately. When it is Tota's turn to ask his question, he asks Fate if he is the one who terminated his parents, and he says yes. Touta gets angry when he hears this, and he is ready to attack Fate when an image of Negi pops up. It appears to be a live image that is communicating from somewhere. Yukihime communicates with Kuramaru via telepathy and tells him to look at Touta. There will be a device on his body that allows him to communicate with Negi. She orders Kuramaru to get rid of the device. She walks toward the device and destroys it before Negi can tell Touta the truth behind everything that is happening. Fate and Yukihime decide that it will be best if they hide the truth from Touta. After the whole thing has died down and Fate has been allowed to go, Kirei is angry that she was not involved in the whole saga. Touta keeps pressuring Yukihime to tell him the truth about his grandfather, but she is not ready to let out the truth. She closes her office door and says to herself how sorry she is. Shortly afterward, an old lady and a girl show up asking after Yukihime and Touta. Touta is having a meal that Shinobu prepared when the lady who just arrived banged in. She introduces herself as Yukihiro. She claims that Touta is from a family of lady killers. Ladies have always been known to be fond of the Springfields. Yuki's great-grandmother was one of the victims. Yuki is there to make sure that no other lady falls into their trap again. She charges toward Touta and he hits her with full force, causing her to fly into the distance, but Touta flies toward her and grabs her. He sets her down on the roof and Yuki reveals the real reason that she is there. She is there to ask Touta to become her groom, but Touta humbly refuses because it is too sudden. On the other hand, Yuki's great-grandma is in Yukihime's office, discussing with her. It turns out that the two knew each other back in college when Negi was the professor. They recount how all the girls were always trying to have Negi for themselves, and Yuki's great-grandma was one of those people. At the same time, Yuki is busy making meals for Touta to try and get his love. Kirei and the rest of the girls realize that Yuki is actually making the food by herself. They are worried that Yuki will win the fight to get Touta. Kirei falls to her knees but still doesn't want to accept that she loves Touta. Karen believes that human girls have the advantage over immortal girls. This continues to break Kirei's heart because she realizes that their chances of winning Touta over are declining day by day. Iku shows up and tells the girls that he has a solution to their problem. The solution he is putting forward is for them to spend time with Touta at the springs. Kirei and Karen don't want to do what Iku says, and he threatens to tell the human girls about it. They beg him not to, and start to consider doing what he said. Yuki's great-grandma and Yukihime continue to talk about Negi and how Yuki spent her time during their college days. Yukihime has always been afraid of letting people go, and Yuki's great-grandma reminds him of what Negi told them, that all it takes is a little courage. Touta and Iku get into the spring together, and Iku does this to bind time for the girls to make up their minds. Iku had told them that they had to scrub Tota's back 50 times to be his favorite. Out of nowhere, Karen shows up, and this surprises Iku. He believes that Karen is not interested in Touta, but here she is. Karen says she is there to watch, but brings out a brush and pins Touta to the floor. She starts to scrub his back, but Kirei shows up and stops her. She wonders why Karen is doing what she is doing when she has been acting uninterested before. Yuki also shows up, and it soon turns out to be a battle of who will get to scrub Tota's back. Kuromaru also shows up and she grabs Touta away from the lot. A commotion erupts between the group and they end up knocking Touta to another side of the spring. Yukihime shows up while they are busy fighting and she starts to scrub Tota's back. The group realizes too late that Yukihime has gotten to work on Tota's back. Iku then tells the girls that they have nothing to worry about if Yukihime and Touta already care for each other. Iku runs away after saying this. Yuki and Shinobu sit down to talk about their competition on who will have Touta. Yuki says she is there to protect Shinobu because she appears to be weak, but that doesn't mean she will let her have Touta. Later that night, Touta meets with Yukihime at the pier. Yukihime looks like her normal self, and Touta wonders why Yukihime chooses to look like that. Yukihime says she wants to tell him something, and she wants it to be in her true form. Touta then decides to ask a question first. He asks Yukihime if she is in love with Negi. Yukihime says there is no need to hide it again, and admits to loving Negi. In fact, she still loves Negi. She then adds that the Negi who appeared the other day is not the Negi whom she loves. She says Negi defeated an evil wizard 20 years ago. The wizard was known as the Life Maker, or the Mage of Beginning, and her name was Beoth. She takes over whoever defeats her, and this gives her the chance to keep on living. This simply means Negi has been possessed by the Mage of Beginning for the past 20 years. Yukihime and Fate plan to save him, but their methods are different, and this is the reason they go their separate ways. Touta then points out that Negi was trying to tell him something before he disappeared. Yukihime then tells the truth that Tota's parents were not the ones who died in the crash that night. The people who died are not his real parents, and it is true that Fate was the one who caused it. Touta wants to know if his parents are still alive. Yukihime comes clean and says Touta was created, using the genetic information of Negi. In short, Touta is Negi's clone. Touta is surprised to hear this, and he later tells Kuromaru about it. He is busy discussing this with Kuromaru when Yuki barges into the room to invite Touta to the Mahora martial arts tournament that is taking place. They arrive at the location where the tournament is happening, and Touta is hyped to be there. Yuki tells him how the tournament works and how the immortals participate. Touta wants to participate, and he starts looking for one of the staff. He finds one who then informs him that the participants of the tournament are chosen beforehand. The only reason a new member can be added is if one of the participants is no longer able to contest. Touta is sad to hear this, but decides that he will enter the tournament the following year. This would have given him the chance to become even stronger. Touta and Yuki are still busy discussing when her great-grandma, Ayaka, shows up. She is accompanied by Chachimaru and the director of the tournament, Mana. Mana is also the headmistress of the school, and Touta is surprised to learn that the place he is standing in is a school. Mana then lets him know that Negi was a teacher in the school 80 years ago. Ayaka and the other two are his students. Back at the headquarters, Shinobu has found out that everyone is going to the capital, and she decides to do the same. Ayaka and the other two ladies take Touta to the classroom where his grandfather taught. There, Touta meets another student of her grandfather, Sayo. Kirei and Kuromaru soon show up and are surprised to find Yuki all alone. She tells them that her great-grandmother was the one who took Touta away. She suspects that her great-grandmother is doing some naughty things with Touta. Back in the classroom, Ayaka gets up from her wheelchair to examine Tota's face very well. She is happy to have been alive to meet Negi's grandson. Touta tries to tell her that he is not Negi's real grandson, but Ayaka says she sees her exactly like Negi's grandson and nothing else. The ladies take turns hugging him just so that they can get a feel of Negi from Touta. Just then, Mana receives a call that tells her that two of the contestants are injured, but they have been able to get one replacement. They only need one more person. Mana looks at Touta and says she has gotten the right person to replace the injured contestant. It is time for the battle, and Touta is the first contestant of the battle after he has been picked to replace the unavailable contestant. Kirei and Kuromaru ask Yuki if she did something to get Touta into the tournament, but she says no. Touta gets into the ring, and his opponent is introduced. His opponent's name is Cutlass, and he is wearing a hoodie. Touta looks at him and believes that Cutlass looks familiar. The battle begins, and Touta is the first to charge toward Cutlass, but he easily dodges the attack. Touta is shocked to see this and talks about how lucky he is to have come across a strong opponent from the start. Cutlass smirks and calls Touta his brother. The battle resumes between the two, and Kuromaru starts to get scared about this. He gets the feeling that Cutlass is stronger than he looks. At the same time, Mana learns from the participant who was injured that the person who took him out of commission is Cutlass. The battle between the two is so intense, but it appears that Touta is losing the battle. Cutlass charges toward Touta, and Touta finds it hard to dodge the attack. Cutlass cuts him in half before he even knows what is happening to him. Yuki wants Kuromaru to do something about the fight, but Kuromaru says a powerful barrier surrounds the stage and she is not strong enough to break it. Touta manages to get himself back up and activate the Aribia, but this is still not enough to match Cutlass's power and skill. Cutlass uses a spell that releases several poles to impale Touta and pin him down. Cutlass makes fun of Touta and calls him the fake version of Negi. Just then, Tota's friends start to motivate him to try and get him to stand back up and fight. With their motivation, Touta is able to free his left arm and deliver a blow to Cutlass's face to get rid of his hoodie. He is shocked to find out that Cutlass is a girl. Just then, Cutlass says she is just the opening act. Out of nowhere, someone starts to appear behind Cutlass. The person is none other than Negi, Tota's grandfather. Mana knows that the person they are looking at is Negi, but not also Negi. She is the mage of the beginning, and she has come for Touta. Negi says he has come for Touta because he is the only one who can save the world, but Touta argues that Negi would have come for him sooner if that was the case. Negi then reveals that he had no idea where Touta was. Negi only sent out visions of himself to those who shared his blood with the hope that they would find him. Negi says Touta was well hidden from him by Yukihime. Just then, Yukihime shows up and destroys the barrier with her spell, and this shows how powerful she is. Yukihime doesn't address Negi as Negi, but she addresses him as the mage of the beginning, Beoth. Just then, three other guys who are Beoth's comrades show up. At the same time, Kuromaru, Kirei, and Kurun show up to support Touta and Yukihime. It is now a battle between two powerful groups. Yukihime tells Touta and the squad that Beoth and her team will be hard to beat. She starts to introduce Negi's comrades to her team. The magical detective, also known as the All-Knowing, is called Yue. The Mind Reader and All-Seeing is called Nodoka. The incredibly strong mercenary swordsman is called Jack Raken. In addition to this powerful comrade is Negi himself. Just then, Negi sneezes, and this rips off all of their clothes. This shows Touta and everyone else present in the area how powerful Negi is. At the same time, Shinobu arrived on the scene. Yue and Nodoka try to convince Touta to come with them peacefully, because he is the only successful creation after 71 failed attempts to combine Negi and Asuna. Touta refuses, and a voice appears behind them. Suddenly, a portal opens and sucks them in. He suddenly finds himself in another era. He comes face to face with a guy who introduces himself as Sanders. Just then, Kurobo speaks out and says, The guy's real name is not Sanders. His real name is Albireo Imma. He is actually the one who created Kurobo. Sanders is angry that Kurobo let out his secret, and he punishes him by putting him under a black hole's pressure. After he is done punishing Kurobo, Sanders tells Touta that he is Yukihime's old friend, but he is now working for Negi. His mission is to convince Touta, and the best way he can do this is to show him Yukihime's love story. Sanders shows him how Yukihime met Nagi, who is Negi's father, and fell in love with him. 15 years later, Yukihime also met Nagi's son at the Mahora Academy. Yukihime doesn't take long before getting Negi under her wing. She makes him do weird things all in the name of training him, and the only person who always comes to Negi's rescue is Asuna. However, their bond continued to grow stronger. He is happy to see this, and he thanks Sanders for showing him images from the past. However, Sanders says he is not showing him images of the past. Yukihime, in his true form, suddenly sees Touta and recognizes him. Before anything else can happen, Both shows up and grabs Yukihime. Before Touta can do anything about it, he is impaled by Sanders. Both cuts Yukihime into two and throws her to the ground. Touta is also thrown to the ground and he crawls toward Yukihime. Both says the only way Touta can save Yukihime is to become one with her. Touta touches Yukihime's hands and Yukihime manages to get herself back together. Touta carries her in his hands and Yukihime confesses that Touta is the person she has always wanted to be with. Touta then assures Yukihime that he will be there to make her happy, but Bouth believes that Yukihime has no chance at happiness. Touta scolds Bouth for saying something like that. Both angrily attacks them. Touta carries Yukihime in his hands and dodges Bouth's ferocious attacks. Just then, Yukihime lets Touta know that they are in a dimension where Bouth has all the power. Whatever she imagines will come to pass. Yukihime then says they are going to use that against her. She uses a spell to create an even space so that they can both use their strength to fight each other. Yukihime says breaking Bouth's mind in this dimension will be the end of her. They charge toward Bouth, but she easily distracts Yukihime with an image of Negi. Yukihime gets knocked to the ground, and Touta, who tries to hit Bouth, also gets knocked over. During the fight, Yukihime slips up and lets it known that she has only loved 3 people in her 700-year life. Touta lacks the wisdom to figure out that the third person is him. The fight continues, and Yukihime is able to hit Bouth with a powerful spell. However, this is still not enough to take her out. Touta is being dragged into the abyss by images of Karin and the other girls. He knows that he is in Bouth's imagination, but he finds it hard to defend against this. Out of nowhere, Asuna shows up and pulls Touta back up. She destroys the dark dimension, revealing a clear view of the environment. She then introduces herself to Touta, and he immediately figures out that the person he is looking at is his grandmother. Yukihime is surprised to see Asuna because she is supposed to be on Mars. Asuna says her real body is still on Mars. She was able to turn from inside Touta because Bouth was screwing with some things inside of him. Asuna hugs Yukihime because it's been a long since they last saw each other. Karin and the rest also show up. Bouth tries to attack them, but Asuna easily blocks off the attack and informs the team that they have only been in this dimension for 0.7 seconds. She says the real fight will start once they leave this dimension. Before they leave, she tells each of them the weaknesses of the opponents who they will be facing. Asuna then tells Touta that the power that resides inside of him is the only thing that can destroy Bouth. He has 37 seconds to get the power to come up. Asuna cuts down the imaginary dimension to let the team back into the real world so that the battle can begin. Kirei will be facing off against Jack, and she's been told to go for his eyes. She does, and they are able to knock him to the ground. Kuramaru is also able to take Yue and her sister out of commission by using a binding spell on them. Yukihime also traps Cutlass with an ice barrier. Touta activates his Irabia power and charges toward Negi, but Negi dodges his initial attack. Touta talks about his determination to save his grandpa from Bouth's bondage. The rest of the team continues to battle it out with Negi's comrades. They aim to keep them busy till Touta is able to access the power inside of him. Negi is about to overpower Touta when Fate shows up. Fate and Yukihime are able to hold Negi down. Fate creates a barrier around them and uses this to pull out their consciousness. Negi's real self is able to come out and discuss with Yukihime, Fate, and Touta. Fate tells Negi that he has found a way to free him from Bouth's bondage, but Negi reminds Fate that he is now part of Bouth and there is nothing that they can do rather than terminate him. Negi is about to continue discussing with them when Touta stops him. He tells him to pay attention to Yukihime because she has missed him. Yukihime jumps into Negi's arms to show how much she has missed him. Negi tells Touta that he is a good kid and he is about to tell him something when their connections get severed. They come back to their real self and try to keep Negi in a wall, but he easily breaks out of it like it's nothing. Negi's body turns white and starts to glow. He easily attacks the trio without using much effort. Touta's 37 seconds is up and he is able to use the same power as his grandfather. However, Karen and the others are already suffering from Jack and the like. Touta flies away from the arena, but Negi chases after him. They take their fight to the sky. Touta charges toward his grandfather and hits him in the face. He scolds him for losing himself to Baoth. He is determined to save him even if he doesn't want to. Touta already has the upper hand, but Jack shows up and impales Touta with a giant sword, and he falls back into the arena. Every single member of the team is beaten up and weak already. Negi is about to terminate Touta when Kirei jumps in between them and reminds Negi what her power is. Negi walks toward Kirei and smiles because it is very clear that she is in love with Touta, but she denies it again. Yue and Nodoka read her thoughts out aloud, but she still denies it. Cutlass pushes her sword into Kirei and starts to torture her while Touta watches on helplessly. Touta continues to struggle to break free while Kirei is in pain. Moments later, Kirei reminds him that they have stalled long enough and it is now time to reveal their true intentions. The entire group suddenly finds themselves in Mahora, 80 years into the past. Negi is shot with some magic sealing bullets by the students who are already waiting. He is still able to break free of this, but the students try to show him how much he means to them, while also attacking her at the same time. They manage to pull off a big distraction, which gives them the chance to inject Negi with a substance that makes him weak. Negi doesn't understand how all the people from his past are standing in front of him. They reveal that they have been inside of Touta all these while, but they have just taken form now. It turns out that Touta is not made up of Negi and Asuna's genes alone. All the girls in Class 3A have their genes in Touta's formation. He is basically their child as much as he is Negi's. Asuna also shows up and she hugs Negi. They are transferred to another location, and Negi realizes that things are no longer going his way. He tells Asuna that they will be willing to withdraw for now. He tells Touta that he will still be waiting for him at the top of the tower. After saying this, a bright light appears, and this takes Negi and his team back to the tower top. After his departure, Touta and the team find themselves back in the arena. The majority of the area is destroyed, but it appears that there is no single life lost. Jinbei was able to get everyone out of harm's way, but he is not ready to reveal the technique that he used. Fate also returns to where he is, but he tells Yukihime not to get in his way next time. Yukihime simply tells him that she cannot promise anything. Touta looks up to the tower and promises Negi that he will be coming to him the next time they meet. After the dust has settled, Kirei insists that her confession was a way of stalling Negi and his people. Shortly afterward, Touta goes to Yukihime's office to tell her that he loves her. Yukihime's initial response is to punch him, but Touta comes running back into the office. Yukihime then tells Touta the answer to his proposal. Yukihime simply says no, and Touta is left flabbergasted. The girls barge into the room and chase after Touta for proposing to Yukihime and ignoring them. After their departure, the camera shows Yukihime's face to reveal that she is blushing hard, but she was only pretending. She even says Touta is 500 years too late.